Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Harvey, let me tell you something real tonight. When a man knows it's you, he doesn't need a crowd to convince him, and he doesn't need a crisis to wake him up. Knowing it's you is not a feeling that comes and goes with moods. It's a decision that settles in his spirit. See, men move differently when certainty shows up. Confusion leaves the room, games lose their excitement, and excuses stop making sense. When he knows it's you, he starts protecting what he hasn't even fully earned yet. He thinks before he speaks. He moves with intention, because now it's no longer about just what he wants in the moment. It's about what he refuses to lose. A man who knows it's you understands that love is not just about attraction, it's about alignment. Your values line up with his future. Your presence brings peace, not pressure. And peace, ladies, is addictive to a man. You'll notice it in his consistency, not perfection, consistency. He shows up even when it's inconvenient. He checks in not because he's bored, but because you matter. When he knows it's you, silence feels wrong to him. Distance feels unnatural. He doesn't disappear to figure things out because he already knows what he's fighting for. When a man knows it's you, confusion ends and clarity begins. That shift doesn't happen overnight, but when it does, everything about how he moves starts to change. Before certainty, a man lives in options. He keeps doors open, not because he's evil, but because he's unsure. Uncertainty makes him hesitate, delay, and overthink. He may care about you, enjoy you, even miss you, yet still act inconsistent. That inconsistency is not always about a lack of feelings. Most of the time, it's about a lack of clarity. Clarity is powerful because it simplifies a man's world. Once he knows it's you, the noise quiets down. He's no longer torn between possibilities or distracted by alternatives. He stops asking himself, what if there's someone better? Because in his mind, the search is over. That's when focus replaces confusion. His energy, time, and attention become more intentional because now he understands what he's working toward. You'll see this clarity in his decisions. Small choices stop being difficult. He doesn't struggle to plan time with you or wonder whether to call or text. He doesn't debate whether he should show up. He just does. When clarity enters, hesitation exits. The man who once delayed conversations now initiates them. The man who avoided defining the relationship now speaks with certainty about where things are going. This clarity also changes how he handles temptation. When a man is confused, everything looks interesting. Attention from others feeds his uncertainty. But when he knows it's you, distractions lose their shine. It's not that attractive people disappear. It's that their presence no longer matters. His loyalty is no longer forced. It's chosen. And chosen loyalty is stronger than any promise spoken out of fear. Emotionally, clarity brings peace. A man who knows it's you is calmer in your presence. He doesn't feel the need to perform or impress constantly. He can be himself without fear of losing you because he's no longer testing the connection. He's settled into it. That emotional stability creates trust, and trust deepens the bond without pressure. Clarity also makes a man accountable. When he knows it's you, excuses start to feel dishonest to him. He becomes aware of how his actions affect you. He thinks before he disappears, before he speaks carelessly, before he makes choices that could damage the connection. Not because he's afraid of punishment, but because he respects what the relationship means. Even in conflict, clarity shows up. Disagreements no longer feel like exit doors. Arguments become problems to solve, not reasons to leave. A confused man runs at the first sign of difficulty. A clear man stays and works through it because walking away would mean losing something he had. Already decided matters. Most importantly, clarity gives direction. He may not have every detail of the future figured out, but he knows who he wants beside him while he figures it out. And that certainty changes the pace of his life. He becomes more deliberate, more grounded, more committed. When a man reaches that point, love stops being uncertain, starts becoming intentional. Consistency is the clearer sign of certainty because it reveals what a man believes without him having to say a word. Anyone can show up once in a while. Anyone can be amazing when it's convenient or when emotions are high. But consistency requires intention. And intention only comes when a man is sure about what he wants. When he knows it's you, his behavior stops changing with his mood, his schedule, or the level of effort required. Consistency shows up first in his communication. He doesn't leave you guessing for days and then return like nothing happened. He understands that silence creates doubt, and doubt threatens the connection he values. So even when life gets busy, he checks in, not with grand speeches, but with steady presence, a simple message, a call, a reminder that you matter. That reliability becomes emotional safety, and emotional safety builds trust faster than words ever could. You'll see consistency in how he treats you over time. The respect you receive on a good day is the same respect you receive on a hard day. He doesn't withdraw affection as punishment, and he doesn't use love as leverage. His behavior doesn't spike when he's afraid of losing you and disappear once he feels secure. A certain man doesn't play emotional games because he has nothing to prove and nothing to manipulate. Consistency also appears in his effort. He doesn't need reminders to invest in the relationship. He makes time because you are a priority, not an option squeezed into free moments. He follows through on what he says he will do. When plans are made, they happen. When promises are spoken, they are honored. And when he can't meet an expectation, he communicates honestly instead of vanishing. This steady effort is especially noticeable during challenges. Life will test every relationship. Stress, setbacks, and disagreements are unavoidable. A man who is unsure will pull back during pressure, using difficulty as an excuse to disconnect. But a man who is certain remains present even when things aren't smooth. His consistency becomes stronger in adversity because he understands that real connections are built, not escaped from. Consistency is not about perfection. He will still make mistakes. He may miscommunicate or fall short at times. The difference is that he takes responsibility and corrects himself. He doesn't repeat the same hurtful patterns over and over. Growth is part of consistency because certainty makes a man willing to improve for the sake of something he values. Over time, this consistency creates emotional security. You don't have to analyze every action or overthink every silence. You know where you stand. That sense of stability allows love to deepen naturally. You feel safe to be yourself, to express needs, to build a future without constantly protecting your heart. In the end, consistency is the evidence of certainty. It's the quiet proof that a man knows who he wants and is willing to show it every day, not just when it's easy. Peace, not pressure, is what makes a man commit. And this truth is often misunderstood. Many people believe that pushing, demanding, or constantly reminding a man of what he should do will move him closer to commitment. In reality, pressure creates resistance. A man under pressure feels controlled, judged, or rushed, and when those feelings appear, his natural instinct is to pull back. Peace, on the other hand, draws him in without force. It makes him want to stay, invest, and build. When a man experiences peace with a woman, his nervous system relaxes. He doesn't feel like he has to defend himself, prove his worth at every turn. He can breathe. That sense of emotional calm becomes a refuge from the chaos of the world. Life already demands so much from him: responsibility, expectations, competition. When your presence offers peace instead of tension, he begins to associate you with relief, comfort, and clarity. And people protect what brings them peace. Peace shows up in how communication happens. Difficult conversations can still exist, but they don't turn into battles. There is space for listening, understanding, and patience. A peaceful connection allows disagreement without disrespect. A man in this environment feels safe to express his fears, doubts, and vulnerability. Safety is essential for commitment because a man will not fully give his heart where he feels emotionally threatened. Pressure often comes from fear of being left, fear of wasting time, fear of not being chosen. While those fears are human, expressing them as ultimatums or constant reminders pushes a man further from certainty. Peace comes from confidence. It sends the message, I value myself and I trust the process. That confidence is attractive because it removes desperation from the dynamic. A man commits more willingly when he feels invited, not cornered. Peace also allows a man to grow at a healthy pace. Commitment is not just a decision, it's an evolution. A man needs space to align his actions with his intentions. When peace is present, he feels supported rather than judged as he steps into responsibility. That support strengthens his desire to rise, not because he's forced, but because he wants to be worthy of what he has. Emotionally, peace creates consistency in behavior. A man who feels calm in the relationship doesn't disappear to escape stress. He doesn't need distance to regulate his emotions. Instead, he leans in. He seeks your presence during hard times rather than avoiding it. This is how peace transforms into partnership. Peace does not mean silence or self-sacrifice. It means expressing needs without hostility and setting boundaries without anger. It means trusting that the right man will meet you where you are without being pushed. When a man commits in an atmosphere of peace, his commitment is deeper and more durable. It's not driven by fear of loss, but by appreciation of what he has found. Fear disappears when a man is sure about who he wants, because certainty replaces doubt with purpose. Before that certainty arrives, fear controls many of his choices. He fears making the wrong decision, fears losing freedom, fears committing to something he might later regret. These fears don't always show up as words. They show up as delay, avoidance, and mixed signals. A man may care deeply, yet still hesitate because uncertainty magnifies fear. Once he becomes sure, that fear begins to lose its power. Clarity gives him direction, and direction creates confidence. Instead of worrying about what he might be giving up, he focuses on what he is gaining. Commitment no longer feels like a trap. It feels like a step forward. The same man who once avoided responsibility suddenly accepts it willingly because now it serves a purpose he believes in. This certainty changes how he views vulnerability. When he is unsure, opening up feels risky. He guards his emotions, keeps parts of himself hidden, and avoids conversations that require emotional depth. But when he knows who he wants, vulnerability becomes an investment instead of a danger. He understands that real connection requires openness, and he is no longer afraid of being seen because he trusts where his heart is placed. Fear also fades in how he plans for the future. An uncertain man lives in the present, hesitant to look too far ahead. The future feels threatening because it demands decisions. A certain man, however, begins to plan naturally. He talks about goals, timelines, and shared experiences without being pushed. These conversations no longer feel heavy, they feel exciting. The future transforms from a source of anxiety into a vision he wants to build. Even the fear of failure changes. When a man is unsure, mistakes feel like confirmation that he shouldn't commit. He interprets problems as signs to retreat. When he is sure, mistakes become challenges to overcome. He no longer runs from conflict. He works through it. His confidence allows him to stay present during difficult moments instead of escaping them. This shift also affects how he handles responsibility. Responsibility feels overwhelming when there is no emotional anchor. But when a man knows who he wants, responsibility gains meaning. He steps up not because he has to, but because he chooses to. The effort he once avoided becomes an expression of love and loyalty. Ultimately, certainty transforms fear into focus. It doesn't mean fear disappears completely, but it no longer controls his actions. He moves forward despite it, guided by the clarity of knowing who matters most. A man who knows it's you includes you in his future naturally, without force or pressure. Because once certainty settles in his heart, your presence becomes part of his vision. He doesn't sit down and calculate how to add you into his life. It just happens. You appear in his thoughts when he imagines what's next. Whether he's thinking about success, stability, or growth, you are already there. Because in his mind, moving forward without you no longer makes sense. This inclusion shows up first in conversation. He speaks about the future using we instead of I. Not as a performance not to impress, but because that language feels accurate to him. He talks about plans, trips, goals, and even challenges with the assumption that you will be part of them. These moments are subtle, but they are powerful indicators of certainty. He's not testing your reaction. He's expressing his reality. You'll also notice it in his decisions. When opportunities arise, he considers how they affect you. He thinks about your needs, your comfort, and your place in his life. This doesn't mean he sacrifices everything or loses himself. It means your presence matters. A man who doesn't see you in his future makes choices in isolation. A man who does sees you as part of the equation. Emotionally, including you in his future creates security. You don't feel like a temporary chapter or a placeholder. You feel anchored. He doesn't keep you at a distance while he figures things out. Instead, he allows you closer, sharing his dreams and fears. That openness builds a deeper bond because you're no longer just experiencing the present together, you're building towards something ahead. This natural inclusion also changes his priorities. Time becomes intentional. He plans ahead instead of waiting until the last minute. He introduces you into areas of his life that matter to him, his routines, his values, his world. Not because he's obligated, but because keeping you separate would feel unnatural. A man who sees you in his future also becomes more mindful of his actions. He understands that what he does today affects what he wants tomorrow. Reckless behavior loses its appeal because it threatens the life he envisions with you. He becomes more grounded, more responsible, and more deliberate in how he moves through life. Most importantly, this inclusion is effortless. You don't have to ask where things are going or wonder if you fit into his plans. His actions speak clearly. When a man knows it's you, his future automatically makes room for you because in his heart, the future already includes you. You never have to convince the right man because when a man is truly meant for you, recognition happens naturally. Convincing is rooted in doubt, and doubt has no place where certainty lies. The moment you find yourself explaining your worth, justifying your needs, or trying to prove why you deserve commitment, something is already misaligned. The right man doesn't need persuasion to see your value. He feels it, understands it, and responds to it through his actions. A man who needs convincing is a man who is undecided. He may like you, enjoy your company, even care about you, but uncertainty keeps him standing at the door instead of stepping fully inside. No amount of effort, sacrifice, or patience can replace clarity. The right man doesn't weigh you against options or keep you on hold while he figures out his feelings. When he knows, he knows. And that knowing changes how he behaves without you asking for anything. The need to convince often pushes women to overextend themselves. They give more, tolerate less, respect, and silence their own needs in hopes of being chosen. But the right man doesn't require you to shrink or perform. He meets you where you are. He sees your standards not as obstacles, but as indicators of your self-worth. Instead of being intimidated by your boundaries, he respects them. Choosing you is not something the right man does once. It's something he does repeatedly. He chooses you in his communication, in his consistency, and in his commitment. You don't have to remind him to show up. You don't have to demand clarity. His actions make his intentions obvious. This kind of choice brings peace because it removes uncertainty from the relationship. A man who truly chooses you does so freely. There is no resentment, no sense of obligation. He doesn't feel trapped by commitment because it aligns with what he wants. That freedom makes his loyalty stronger. What is freely chosen is protected with care. When you stop trying to convince someone, you create space for the right man to step forward. You shift from proving to receiving. You allow yourself to be loved without conditions or competition. This doesn't mean giving up on love. It means trusting that the right connection will not require you to fight for recognition. In the end, being chosen should feel natural, not exhausting. The right man won't need to be persuaded because your presence in his life will already make sense to him.